and number 22 Memphis gets the win over Florida Atlantic, 84-65. 3 top 25 games tonight, including a matchup of 2 top 25 teams. Number 5 Houston on the road to take on number 9 Texas Tech in the biggest game of the night. Elsewhere, number 12 Michigan going to be on the road against Nebraska. Number 23 Kansas, they go to Colorado. The Philadelphia 76ers looking at options for the knee injury that Joel Embiid is currently dealing with. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score.
If you've been waiting to hear Macy's winter clearance, now's the time. Get everything you've been eyeing all season long at prices that are worth the wait. How good? Think 40 to 70% off coats, sweaters, boots, and more. Plus, come in and get an extra 20% off all your clearance purchases. That's up to 75% off. So if you've been waiting to treat yourself to something cute and cozy, hurry into Macy's tomorrow, because you're not the only one ready to score amazing winter deals. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Hey, not to be dramatic, but you should smell this. It smells so good.
Whoa, that's quite the reaction to mixing and matching Gain scents. Let's hear another from Ashley, who mixed Gain products and went,
I'm so excited.
Yes, you are. What about you, Isaiah?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and Emily summed it up like so.
It is just chef's kiss.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Mix, match, more happy with Gain.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes 2.
One to change the light bulb, and one to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
A new week begins right here, right now, live on a Monday afternoon on Football Full Circle. It is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Lisi guy, not just a new week around the football universe, but Combine Week officially underway as of today in Indianapolis. The workout's a little bit later on in the week when the guys are actually on the field, running the 40, doing their vertical jump, the 3-cone drill, all of that good stuff. Those workouts will continue through the weekend. But starting today, Joe, some measurements for all 329 prospects. We'll get some press conferences. And, of course, the best of the best will meet with all 32 NFL clubs this week in Indy. It is the official start of draft season. It is Combine Week in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it is. And that's, a very good time to be a college player, following these players that like you and I do from the regular season into the offseason to see where a potential fit for an NFL organization is pretty intriguing, right? And we always talk about this time, there's always 1 or 2 guys, depending upon the position, that will fly up and be the media hype for this week. A couple of years ago, it was Jordan Davis, his 40 time. We've seen John Ross and Xavier Worthy last year just with the ability to burn on the 40-yard dash. So there will be a player that comes out of nowhere that will steal the spotlight in some capacity from others, and that's what makes this so intriguing heading into not just the Combine, but the NFL draft in a couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely so. And as Joe alluded to right there, things will happen during the scouting combine this week in Indy that will alter draft boards, that will change draft markets. It might elevate some and drop a few others. But as should be pointed out, and we try to each and every year, it is always important to pair up the workouts that you see in a combine / a pro day, the measurements and the measurables, obviously with what you see on tape. The actual football that we have seen from these prospects at the collegiate level, that should probably weigh more into the draft evaluation and equation. But of course, Joe, they look at these combine results, and it's a part of the big picture that forms the entirety of a prospect's profile.
It does. And one player in particular in terms of Shedeur Sanders won't participate, right? He's going to do the interview process without showcasing the arm or anything And we've seen that in recent years as well, where players come in and don't perform. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. was one last year as well that even missed the interview process for a couple of teams and really potentially maybe hurt his draft stock in some capacity. So again, this is an opportunity for the players that maybe are in rounds 2 through 7 to really maybe solidify a better round selection and maybe make a club as this draft process plays out. Yeah. And then if there is maybe a debate or in terms of the analysis of a top player at a specific position, we mentioned wide receiver last year, wide receivers this year, it's a deep running back class. Depending upon how the combine goes and who participates, that maybe could separate 1 or 2 players from the bunch and maybe make them some money and solidify a first-round ranking.
Listen, we've seen some guys vault up draft boards based on their performances in Indianapolis. Xavier Worthy, the speedster, who ran a 4.21 40-yard dash a year ago, as Lisi alluded to, the fastest ever 40 time at the combine. Was that why he was a first-round pick for the Chiefs? Perhaps, but of course, he then made good on it with his football acumen throughout his rookie campaign in KC. We have seen guys like Anthony Richardson, the physical freak that he is, put up numbers no quarterback ever had previously at the NFL Scouting Combine. Was that why he was the 4th overall draft pick? Probably not. Was it a part of the equation? I am sure. And Joe, that's the key though, right? Just having it as part of the process, not the overwhelming part of the process. In most everybody in the NFL will tell you the same thing. There's not a GM out there right now who's like, hey, combine, that's all I care about. Combine, that's 55% of the equation. Obviously not. You just hope that everything you see in Indy, you sprinkle with a grain of salt, perhaps, to understand it's in shorts, it's in prime conditions, it's working out, it's not in the duration of a football game.
No, but it's also good for the agents as well, right? Particular, negotiations. You see a particular player burn, they're expecting a 4.7 or a 4.8. He comes in at a 4.4. All of a sudden, that opens up the negotiation process. Hey, keep an eye out for our guy on day number 2 or 3, respectively. And maybe potentially it might also give a team, right, that maybe wasn't thinking about particular moves on draft day, because we've seen trades play out now in back-to-back years where maybe a team is impressed with a combine and says, you know what, we're willing to roll the dice on day number 1 because of how we perform. That might be the cherry on top to maybe make certain moves and move on from particular veterans on a roster. And that's what we saw play out last year. We certainly saw it play out a couple of years ago where there were like 5 or 6 drafts and trades on day number 1.
Yeah, absolutely so. And Joe is right. Could it be the difference between this guy who you had as your 3rd best wide receiver on your board or the other guy that ran a little bit slower? Perhaps. Is it going to vault somebody into first-round consideration? We shall see. To Joe's point, one of the biggest news, of course, as you get ready for the scouting combine is who will be there, who won't be there. More than likely, though, who won't be fully participating in some of those combine drills and workouts. Joe, at this stage, it's not a shock to see some of the best and brightest say, hey, I'm just going to focus on my pro day, certainly at the quarterback position. Shedeur Sanders is not going to work out at the NFL Draft Combine. He is going to use the opportunity to meet with NFL clubs that might be interested in the potential top overall draft pick or a top 5, top 10 pick to share more of his story and, of course, go through the interview process. However, he will not throw. He will not work out during this week at the Combine.
Yeah, he won't. Again, I think he's definitely top 2. I don't think for him it's going to affect his performance in any capacity. Maybe he does take a pro day in a couple of weeks to showcase the arm. We'll see how that plays out with Prime and the whole situation there at Colorado. But at the end of the day, I think for quarterbacks that are like 1 and 2, you want to see the off the field. Can he handle the locker room? Can he handle the press? Can he handle the talks with the GM and the scouting department at the Combine? How does he possess those maturity skills and leadership skills in front of the crowd? Can he elevate his teammates? That's more just as important as the physical attributes. We've seen quarterbacks that can chuck it and throw it over the course of the years, right? Can they handle the leadership perspective and the off the field, whether that makes or breaks whether you have good quarterbacks or elite quarterbacks? And Daniel Jones is a perfect example of what we saw transpire about 5 years ago.
Joe, we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders a little bit more on the other side of the break. His odds outlook, who is selecting in the top 5, top 10, in desperate need of a quarterback. Will Shedeur be at the top of their big board? I would just say this, right? We've heard some reports, however true or fair that they are, that Deion Sanders has been very intentional about where he wants his kids to play. And Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, his other son, if you will, who are going to be top 5, top 10 picks. It's not necessarily like Joe Deion has mentioned every team out there in the NFL. He has highlighted a few. Shedeur Sanders, even in the Alamo Bowl, was wearing the cleats of the New York Giants before the Giants then lost a game against the Indianapolis Colts won a game against the Indianapolis Colts as a touchdown underdog that they should not. The Sanders family has been intentional. I am sure, Joe, that some of the questions this week in Indianapolis will be, hey, if we use the second overall pick on you, the Cleveland Browns saying such a thing, will you come to the land? Those will be part of the questions. It is part of Combine Week just as much as the workouts are. We'll talk about all of that on the other side of the break, live right here on Football Full Circle.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that 5. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. California Governor Gavin Newsom has asked Congress to approve nearly $40 billion in aid to help the Los Angeles area recover from January's devastating wildfires. Newsom sent a letter asking for support from lawmakers including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Representative Tom Cole of Oklahoma, the House Appropriations Committee chair. Estimates of the total economic loss from the firestorm have been estimated to surpass $250 billion, with real estate losses from the Palisades and Eaton fires predicted to potentially top $30 billion. Flu activity remains elevated in the United States, but is starting to show signs of abating according to new federal data published Friday. The 2024-25 season was classified by the CDC as a high-severity season overall for all age groups, making it the first high-severity season since 2017-2018. During the week ending February 15th, 6.8% of visits to doctors' offices were for flu-like illness, down from 7.7% of visits over the previous 2 weeks. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. It is Combine Week in Indianapolis. More than 320 of the best collegiate prospects now trying to make that move to the National Football League. They'll work out, they'll run, they'll interview, and they will meet with teams all around the National Football League. Joe, one of the top 2 quarterbacks, perhaps, in this 2025 NFL draft class, Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, will not work out this week in Indy. That itself, not much news anymore in today's day and age of the scouting combine, that he won't throw or won't work out or won't run. He'll do that at his pro day at Boulder. But still, Joe, part of the beauty of Combine Week that I think gets passed a lot of the public. They just want to see how fast a guy runs the 40-yard dash. It's a time for this huge event for all of the NFL scouts, draft evaluators, front offices, head coaches to come together, be in one place, and have every prospect at their disposal that they want to take a couple of times to have some interviews with. You can get some weird and interesting questions. You'll get a lot of time at the whiteboard breaking down plays, saying what you see here based on film, and you got a lot of face-to-face opportunity for these draft prospects. That will be one that Shedeur Sanders elects to use to kind of describe who he is, his mentality, what football means to him, and what he would bring to a franchise. Joe, there's no character concerns for Shedeur Sanders, but Dion, his dad, of course, who is loud and boisterous and often wears that ego to the benefit of him, has said in times past, my son's not just going to play anywhere. So I wonder, Joe, with those top two teams in the draft order, the Titans at first overall, the Browns at second overall, if either Tennessee or Cleveland has any trepidation in selecting Shedeur Sanders, making sure that he will be the face of that franchise.
Well, I think the trepidation would be if they don't believe Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in the class, then they should go for Cam Ward. All right, so that's the first thing. If they do believe that Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback for not only in the class but for their team and their offense of philosophy, then you take him, right? At worst, I don't want to say it, but you hold them hostage in the sense of, okay, we want you. If you don't want us, we're still going to select you, and now let a team come and pay the rewards for whatever you feel is going to be, the right type of assessment or evaluation on that investment. So again, do I believe Shedeur wants to play for Tennessee or Cleveland? Absolutely not. I think Shedeur, if he's going to go to a losing organization, would much rather go to a team like the New York Jets or Giants because of the media market, the hype, and the ability to not just, win football games potentially, but brand himself from a marketing aspect, right? It's a win-win. You move on from NIL to the primetime, media market in the NFL. So that's what I believe. But should those two top teams shy away because potentially it's a situation like Eli Manning or what we saw play out? No, you make the pick and force the player and his team to make the adjustments.
So that's also a part of the conversation, right? It wasn't all that long ago, but now more than 2 decades ago, that in 2004, Eli Manning was drafted first overall by the then San Diego Chargers to be traded in a deal for the 4th overall pick, Phillip Rivers, who was drafted by the Giants, a quick swap on draft day, as the Manning family did not want Eli playing in San Diego. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to force a hand like that by any means, but it comes down to the draft evaluation. And Joe, we have already heard from Titans GM Mike Borgonzi in his first year in Nashville. He would welcome a couple of calls about that 1st overall pick. That would surprise me if Tennessee ultimately trades the 1st overall selection, knowing they desperately need a quarterback. There is not an answer on the roster right now. It is not trying to see what Will Levis has in his 3rd NFL season. It is certainly not Mason Rudolph if he's not even a free agent this offseason. You don't get many opportunities to change the direction of your franchise with the 1st overall pick and try to find that quarterback of the future. But Joe, of course, the Titans have to be 100% sold that either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, more than likely, is that future face of the franchise.
Correct, but they have to make a quarterback decision. The reason why I say that is twofold. They've never had the opportunity to pick 1st overall. That's right in recent years. They've when they were at the top with Vrabel and they made it to the AFC Championship game, they had had signed a free agent quarterback in terms of Ryan Tannehill that moved on from Miami. They then swung and missed on both Malik Willis and Will Levis, 2nd and 3rd rounds respectively, 4th rounds. Right now, you swing and miss and don't go on a quarterback that you could potentially get the best player in the draft. What are you doing? So I understand that maybe they're not elite quarterbacks. I get that. But you still, as an organization, have to take one of these guys because otherwise, if another team or a competitor within the division does, or let's just say a down-and-out AFC team, and they have a Jaden Daniels type of season, what are you doing to your fan base? You're absolutely killing them.
Yeah, absolutely so, Joe. And that's one of the issues, right? There's an idea that, hey, if Tennessee passes on a quarterback because they are not convinced and they can trade out of the first overall selection and recoup a ton of draft capital and assets, that it might be another down year. They might go 2-15, 3-14, 4-13, but in the potential 2026 QB class, there's more options at the top. That's never a guarantee. There's a lot of ifs in doing so. And Joe, Brian Callahan is about to enter his second year as the head coach in Nashville. He is an offensive mind, was the former OC in Cincinnati. You're not exactly providing him with a true litmus test if he can be a successful head coach. Maybe Borgonzi's like, listen, dude, I would have never hired you if I was here in Nashville the entire time, and that's a part of the conversation. But you're not really giving him the true eval if you don't get him a quarterback or something to build around this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a lose-lose for the fan base, and it's a lose-lose for any veteran on that team looking to have a better season in 2025.
So we'll ask those questions on the other side of the break. The first two picks in the 2025 NFL Draft, now during Combine Week, the Titans and the Browns, in that order. Will they both go quarterback? Find out next on Football Full Circle.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1980, the U.S. hockey team clinches a gold medal win with a 4-2 victory over Finland at the Lake Placid Winter Olympics. Captain Mike Eruzione said head coach Herb Brooks made it a point to his team not to blow this chance.
And he walks in the locker room, and he looks at us, and he says, if you lose this game, you'll take it to your bleeping grave. And he walked out, he stopped at the door, he pointed his finger back at us and said, your bleeping grave.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Researchers at Leipzig University have discovered that fruit flies, just like more sophisticated creatures, sometimes like to play. By building a bug-sized carousel 1/2 inch tall inside a glass biosphere containing almost 200 common fruit flies, filmed and tracked by image recognition software for 2 weeks. Some fruit flies terrified by the carousel. But many took the ride multiple times. The goal, not insect amusement parks, but understanding neural and biochemical traits for insect control. However, no word if fruit flies like roller coasters. Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Money Line.
Yeah, come on. Where's tradition at? Aren't the Yankees supposed to be one of the most traditional franchises around? So, okay, if we're not about tradition anymore, how about doing away with one of the dumbest traditions of all time, which is the Yankees? Put the name on the back of your jersey at home. Hey, look, beards, mustaches, goatees, long hair, and put the name on the back of the jersey at home. How about that, New York? Is that good for tradition for you as well?
Catch Money Line with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge anywhere.
Even while the wife's talking to you.
If you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. So Lisi Guy, it is Combine Week around the NFL. As we start to be in Indianapolis this week, we'll get some measurements. We'll get those measurables. We'll hear from players. We'll hear from coaches. We'll hear from GMs. We'll hear from all of that as the NFL emerges on Indianapolis this week. It is really great because you just get to see everybody in one spot, one of the staples of a football offseason around the NFL. But, Joe, as we look at the top 10 of the draft order and we stay at the top, we're having that quarterback conversation. Tennessee right now slated to pick first overall, the Browns at number 2. It would seem, Joe, in a quarterback class that is really top heavy, where as of this moment, probably a top 10, top 15 grade only on Miami's Cam Ward and Colorado's Shedeur Sanders, that two teams in desperate need of a quarterback in the Titans and the Browns would welcome the chance to select that QB of the future. Joe, do you think both Tennessee and Cleveland will draft a quarterback come late April?
I don't know if Cleveland does. I read a report today that said they'd be interested in Matt Stafford if he became available. I mean, are they going to go that route yet again? No one would happen, obviously, with Deshaun Watson and how much money he cost that organization, and knowing that Stafford in a cold weather environment, even though he played in Detroit, has basically played his whole career in a dome. You know, is that the route? But that's what you're hearing. So I would say 50-50. I think there's no doubt Tennessee does. I think Cleveland could go a different route, potentially, depending upon certainly what happens with Myles Garrett as well. You know, even though they want to keep him, is he, checked into the organization in 2025, or does he want to move on to a contender? That's also an area where maybe they get value and trade out.
Yeah, you never know, Joe. You really don't, because as of this moment, there's a lot of teams that will need a quarterback. We have discussed 7 at some point this offseason, more than likely to have a different starting quarterback on the first day of 2025's NFL campaign than they did in 2024. That will have to address that different quarterback with somebody from outside of the roster currently. Like Minnesota is going to have a different starting quarterback, but that's going to be J.J. McCarthy, we would believe. Joe, I would think, just me here, I would think the Titans and the Browns would go quarterback 1 and 2. Cam Ward, who's the odds-on favorite at the moment at minus 140 to be that first overall selection, drafted by Tennessee. Cleveland at number 2, take Shedeur Sanders. But just because I think that would be the case does not mean that it will be the case in something at least early on, right? You try to read between the smoke screens and figure out where everything is going to fall. For me, Joe, it still feels like something is going to happen. Is somebody going to trade out of one of those top 2 spots? Are they trading out because a team is in love with either Ward or Sanders? I'm not entirely sure. But although I think both the Titans and the Browns should go QB 1 and 2, I'm not sure that by April 24th, in the first round of the NFL draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin, we are going to see it be that simple. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, 1-2 to the Titans and the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they're the 2 top quarterbacks. I think there is separation, and I'll include Jackson Dart into the top 3 that's, claiming to fly up draft, boards because of his mobility. Does that mean they're going to go 1 and 2 like we saw C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young? No, it doesn't. But I think there's a separation from both of those guys to Jackson Dart. And Jackson Dart might come be this player that we see at the combine or with the pro day that, he's worthy. And he is. But if we're talking just body of work and we're talking big matchups and we're talking about elevating against, better competition, I do feel Cam Ward and Shedeur have done it just a little bit better and more consistent than Jackson Dart. Now, we'll see. But, again, if you're asking me to make a bet right now, does Cleveland and Tennessee go 1-2 with quarterback? I wouldn't make that bet. If there's a no and it's plus money, I would take that shot.
Some more news, Joe, from the NFL Combine that just came down the pipe. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network saying that Heisman runner-up and record setter in Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty has elected to participate only in medical evaluations and team interviews at the 2025 Combine. He will take part in on-field drills during Boise State's Pro Day. Now, we know it from a quarterback perspective that has often become the case. But from a running back perspective, that's some news. We'll talk about it in what should be a deep running back class in 2025 on the other side of the break here on Football Full Circle.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score. University of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, who is considered to be one of the top players at that position available in April's NFL draft, he reportedly is not going to work out at the scouting combine at Indianapolis this week. He will meet with teams in Indianapolis, but he is not scheduled to work out for them, and we'll see when he is going to spend some time working out and what that is going to look like moving forward. College basketball, top 25 action tonight. Number 5 Houston on the road against number 9 Texas Tech, biggest game of the evening. Also tonight, number 12 Michigan goes to Nebraska, number 23 Kansas at Colorado. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score.
Dell Technologies is celebrating with anniversary savings on their most popular tech. For a limited time only, save on select next-gen PCs like the XPS 16, powered by Intel Core Ultra processors and more. Plus, curate your dream setup with great deals on select monitors, mice, and more must-have electronics and accessories. When you shop online at Dell.com/deals, you'll have access to leading-edge technology to match your forward-thinking spirit and free shipping on everything. Again, that's Dell.com/deals.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time and skip the regular line at the airport and pay for speedy security. Imagine not having to quickly unpack and pack at the place you already came packed to. And wearing your shoes the whole time you're there? You can't put a price on that kind of luxury. Well, actually you can, and you paid for it. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For speedy security, Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Lisi, the news that we just talked about right before the break from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman runner-up, of course, the record-setting running back out of Boise State this past season, is electing to only do medical evaluations and in-person team interviews during Combine Week in Indy. He will participate in on-field work during Boise State's Pro Day at a later date. Shedeur Sanders is doing the same thing, right? And it's a quarterback. We don't really expect him to throw. A lot of quarterbacks in the last 5-7 years have elected to save their throwing workouts for a pro day. Joe, should it cause any more alarm that a running back is saying, I'm good with the on-field work at the combine as well?
No, I don't think we know Ashton Jeanty was the best running back in college football. As long as he's 100% healthy and he clears medical evaluations, I'm good. It's like it's almost like wide receiver too. Like we saw Marvin Harris and Malik Neighbors. As long as they're healthy, the tape doesn't lie. So if you like that player, nothing should shy you away, especially from a running back. I'd be concerned making a little bit of cuts if I'm not the number one overall selection or number one running back, especially on turf in this type of off the field or off season type of situation when I haven't been in season for a while. That could always be a situation. You pull a hamstring, you tweak an ACL, God forbid you tear it, then your season's done. So I have no problem with the running back in that situation. So I think he's making a proper choice as long as he checks out physically. Yeah, I have no problem with him. Now, if it's other running backs like the third and the fourth and the fifth, I do have a problem with that because you weren't high on my draft board. You have to prove yourself more so than Ashton Jeanty has.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Right? There is the game tape. We know what Ashton Jeanty is and what he can be in the National Football League. It is a deep running back class. The running back position was devalued in the NFL, and now it's kind of on the rise once again. We have seen running backs go off the board early and often as of late. 2 years ago, Bijan Robinson, 8th overall. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall. We'll see if there are multiple first-round running backs this year as well. I'll tally up the numbers in just a minute. But, Lacey, guy, I don't think this is as concerning as some might say, the guy doesn't want it. Doesn't have that football mentality. Isn't even out there on the field working out in shorts. How can we trust this guy? The combine from that perspective, when it was at one point a time where it was the first time you had seen some of these college guys in your life or work out in your life, it is not nearly that anymore. Tape is disposable. You can grab things, dispensable, I should say. You should find all of that immediately. You know who these guys are. We know TV games are broadcast in a much different way. But what's still very important about the combine is what Ashton Jeanty is doing. Meeting with teams, interviewing with teams, pitching himself, hearing what teams are pitching to him, hearing what their plans are in place. So I don't mind the idea that this guy's not working out or this guy's not going through the on-field drills. It doesn't seem as important at the combine as it was in years past.
Yeah, again, I think if you have a concern about a player speed-wise, then maybe it could hurt, right? If you think Ashton Jeanty is going to run a 4.8 or a 4.9 40, then yeah, you want to see him run. If you have no problem about his speed, if you have no problem about what he can do on the football field, and he just chooses not to participate, but goes through the medical evaluation and the interview process, that should be good enough. I think if it would be a problem if he said, I'm not going to run, I'm not going to participate, I'm not going to go through the medical evaluation because obviously I have something to hide or I don't want to, something to pop up, then that would be a bigger cause of concern than him saying, I'll go through the medical eval and the interviews. I just don't want to test because I'm afraid of getting hurt. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And that's a great point to bring up as well. We know some of these guys. We know what these guys can do at this level. We shall see it in the National Football League. There's no doubt about it, even if we don't see a few workouts this week in Indianapolis. But, Joe, we looked at the combine list and the prospect list a couple of days ago. The running back class this year is so incredibly deep, it is crazy. Ashton Jeanty, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. So many guys that you know through college football that were incredibly productive in the collegiate ranks, now taking that step to the NFL. Joe, I think we will see multiple first-round running backs this year come late April for the 2025 NFL Draft, which has not been the most frequent occurrence here in the last 5, 7, 8 years around the NFL.
No, it hasn't. And again, you can make the argument, Quinshon Judkins and how Travion Henderson performed in the college football playoff. They're worthy because both of those players can catch the football out of the backfield and they can sure as heck run it, right? And did it, in the best competition in college football. So do I feel like you could get value in this draft, second, third, even potentially late in the first round? Absolutely. Taj Brooks is another one. He's a shorter running back, but yards after contact had one of the best, yards per play after contact in all of college football. So these are the things that when you talk about draft need and draft class, there's about, on that list, 10 to 12 running backs that, in my opinion, are worthy of first round through maybe third round talent that could fall to teams. And if they get outside of that, teams are getting a great discount on great players.
Last year, the first running back off the board was Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who was coming off a torn ACL, of course, some bad news for Brooks. This year, re-injured that knee. He was, though, Joe, not a first-round pick, but a second-round pick, 14th in that round, 46th overall. He was the only running back to go in round 2. We saw multiple in round 3, but we only had 4 day 2 picks at the running back spot before we saw more starting in round number 4 and in day 3. Not a first-round selection for a running back a season ago. Following the year of the running back, as we shed Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, 8th and 12th overall, respectively, to the Falcons and the Lions. Joe, since 2019, just twice in that span have we seen multiple running backs in the first round in the last 5 drafts. 2 years ago in 2023 and in 2021. Najee Harris, Travis Etienne at the end of the opening round in 2021. The years in between, Joe, 2022 and a season ago, not a single first-round pick at the running back spot. Again, I think we see multiple. I think we see one. I do, at the very least, believe Ashton Genty will be the first off the board.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think the number is? 2.5 for round one? Can you see 2.5? Can
Probably.
we see 3? It's possible. I mean, here's the thing. With Derrick Henry and Saquon, and we know they're elite talent, I get that. But teams might start valuing running backs much more and in greater need. And if a guy, let's say, outside of Amari, and I'm not sure Amari and Hampton is one of the best, meaning productive-wise, yes.
For sure.
Would I put him right there with Quinshawn or Travion? I wouldn't, but others might. The thing is, what if we have one of these running backs run a 4.3 out of nowhere? All of a sudden now you have, that's the point though, right? You have one of these guys run a 4.3. Oh, by the way, he was a 1,200-yard rusher in the SEC or the Big Ten. Now all of a sudden a team might reevaluate. We get this player in round one. We can get an O-lineman or somebody of similar value in round 2 to 4. It changes the whole dynamic, and that's why these bets, and we always talk about this, quarterback, running back, number of players taken can significantly change based off the combine.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Joe. And that will be a huge part of it, right? If in a part of your draft evaluation, you do something that people do not expect in Indianapolis, that can move you up a draft board as well. We'll have plenty more on Football Full Circle up next, live right here on SportsGrid Radio.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. California Governor Gavin Newsom has asked Congress to approve nearly $40 billion in aid to help the Los Angeles area recover from January's devastating wildfires. Newsom sent a letter asking for support from lawmakers including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Representative Tom Cole of Oklahoma, the House Appropriations Committee chair. Estimates of the total economic loss from the firestorm have been estimated to surpass $250 billion, with real estate losses from the Palisades and Eaton fires predicted to potentially top $30 billion. Flu activity remains elevated in the United States, but is starting to show signs of abating according to new federal data published Friday. The 2024-25 season was classified by the CDC as a high-severity season overall for all age groups, making it the first high-severity season since 2017-2018. During the week ending February 15th, 6.8% of visits to doctors' offices were for flu-like illness, down from 7.7% of visits over the previous 2 weeks. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
With Fidelity Wealth Management, a dedicated advisor gets to know you and your goals to build a comprehensive plan to help grow and protect your wealth. Backed by a team of specialists, they'll analyze all your accounts, even the ones they don't manage, to keep an eye on taxes and provide proactive portfolio insights that can help you unlock your wealth's full potential. Learn more at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Lisi guy, we're not going to have a lot of odds out right now around the NFL draft. We hope that during Combine Week or in the immediate aftermath of Combine Week that we can start to get some of those prices out there. Because right now, the only odds we have to be that first overall pick, where Cam Ward is the odds-on favorite at minus 140. Abdul Carter, second best price, the outstanding edge rusher and game breaker out of Penn State, plus 175. Travis Hunter, our reigning Heisman winner at plus 550. And Shedeur Sanders, a plus 750 price. A long drop-off to Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss, at 45-1. Joe, it would really seem to be Cam Ward versus Abdul Carter right now, but four guys, with a three-digit price at plus 750 or shorter.
Yeah, I mean, three guys at play. I mean, Abdul Carter is going to be that guy that when you talk about edge rushers and you just talk about Myles Garrett type of players and obviously Micah Parsons coming from Penn State back in the day, that could change the complexity of a game. And when you watch the Super Bowl play out and you see the best quarterback modern day be consistently pressured, Abdul Carter has great value. Right now, does a team value that and value that more than potentially an elite quarterback or a franchise guy? We'll see. I mean, I still think, I don't think there's any shot Abdul Carter becomes a number one overall selection. Is he top three? Yes. Do I feel he'll go top three? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think Abdul Carter, he might fall to 5 overall, 6, 7 in that area. Travis Hunter, to me, is the most polarizing player. And the reason why I say that is we've never seen a dual threat take over both sides of the ball. Is he the best wide receiver in the class? Maybe not, but the upside is there. Is he the best defensive lockdown corner that we've seen? Absolutely. So that would be a player outside of the quarterbacks that I'd say, you know what? A team might be thinking they're getting, bang for the buck. You take him number one overall. I'm just suggesting. Now you have an opportunity. He would be the player I would bet on because of the dual threat ability over an Abdul Carter or one of these other offensive or defensive players to potentially get into the top 3 or top spot overall.
I'm really excited to see how Travis Hunter is perceived throughout this draft process. And if we start to get info or wording or reports that a team is like, we love this guy, we're going to let him play 50 snaps on both sides of the ball each and every week. That was Colorado's plan. Is that going to carry over into the NFL? That remains to be seen. At the Combine this week, listed as a defensive back. Does that mean he needs to be drafted as a DB or exclusively play DB in the NFL? No, but that will be the workout groups that he is with this week in Indianapolis. That third best price at plus 550 to be the first overall pick. And Joe, we started off the show discussing the quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. And the price right now for Cam Ward at minus 140 to be the first overall pick is not necessarily tied with Tennessee. You don't win that bet. You don't cash that ticket for Cam Ward, first overall pick, Tennessee Titan. You cash it if it's Cam Ward, first overall pick, regardless of who ends up making the selection, as long as Cam Ward hears his name called before anybody else. And I do believe, Joe, that if Tennessee is trading out of the first overall pick, somebody is dead set on a quarterback, more than likely Cam Ward, at least based from the odds perspective, that whoever ends up drafting first overall is taking Cam Ward. If Tennessee holds on to the first overall pick and drafts somebody like Travis Hunter, I think they have done a disservice in not acquiring the necessary draft capital to move out of that position.
Yeah, if they do that, they better make the playoffs and win the division, right? Because, and I know you shake your head, but there's no shot. Right, like the odds of them drafting Travis Hunter and then coming through and him being the reason why they're a 14-3 football team is just not going to happen. It's a 95 to 5% shot. Could it? Yeah, there's always an outlier. But what do? Your fan base will turn on you quicker than you can imagine. You might have a one and done with the GM this year. It might be a situation where you're not getting any revenue from a sports club because you're stuck in mediocrity, and fans will demand that you sell the team. So that's where they're at right now. I mean, they have to take a guy, whether it pans out or not. They have to take a quarterback, whether it be Shedeur, whether it be Cam. Pick one and try to develop him, because if you don't and another team does and has that type of year like Washington had, you'll never live it down. You'll be in mediocrity for 5 or 10 years down the road.
For sure, because maybe Mike Borgonzi could not control Brian Callahan or how the previous regime did things in the NFL draft. The one thing he is very much in control of now, what Tennessee decides to do with that first overall pick. Again, I would be surprised if they are not making that pick. I would be doubly surprised if they trade out of that pick and it's not a quarterback that goes first overall. So that will be the case, Joe, to see how those odds start to move right here, right now. We gave you the first pick odds and the 4 guys with 3 digits by their price, but it should be noted on the opening day of Combine Week officially in Indy, minus 140, Cam Ward the first overall pick. He is the favorite to be so. Joe, there's a lot that's going to happen. I guarantee you that price moves at some point throughout this process. Might not be this week in Indianapolis, could be 2 weeks from now, could be 2 days or 2 hours before the NFL draft begins in late April. But I don't think it remains at minus 140 the entire time. Could get a lot stronger. We could see a favorite flip. That is always a key during draft season. There are smoke screens, there are reports, there are lies put out there. But one thing that is always a guarantee, the market is going to move. We will always say, though, Joe, the early market, the early odds, often is pretty spot on to what the initial thought should be.
Yeah, again, and, for me, I recommend if you want to play on the lottery tickets deep because depending upon how this combine goes out and a player that potentially is a fringe first rounder, that's where the value is.
Yeah, and we'll see where all of this goes and all the markets that we'll have by the time we get to late April. Some more NFL news around the league from an interesting weekend that was. Is Matthew Stafford on the move? Actually? What? Why? More of it next on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC for one more segment to kick off this new week on a Monday on SportsGrid Radio. Joe, over the weekend, an interesting report about Matthew Stafford, that the Rams were allowing his agent to reach out to other NFL organizations and get a sense of what Matthew Stafford's trade value would be to others. Not a trade request, not actively working on a trade. The idea as it was presented is that Stafford's agent and representation would see what his value is, which would lead to what the initial goal is in the first place, Matthew Stafford reworking his contract to return to the Rams. But that's an interesting way of going about it. If you're trying to re-sign the guy and maybe try to give him a raise to update to what the current inflation is at the quarterback spot, don't you already, as a GM, Les Snead, understand what his value is to your franchise? Don't you, Matthew Stafford, recognize your best chance at the tail end of your career to keep winning football games and be in contention for a championship is to remain with this young and talented Los Angeles Rams team? Joe, there is so much that goes into this report that frankly doesn't make a ton of sense to me. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this throughout the past week or so, that, his wife has been very outspoken about respect from the team and vice versa, getting rid of or allowing Cooper Kupp to potentially be traded, not, solidifying certain key positions. And then they gave him, access or they granted him the ability to, just see if he could get a better deal. Something's going on, meaning the team is content from moving on from him, either it be the age, either it be knowing that there's, behind the scenes situation where maybe him and his wife aren't happy about the current landscape in LA and the ability to get more money. It's always about more money. And if a team like the Giants or Cleveland are going to throw $50 million at them that need a quarterback entering 2025, then they'd entertain it. But again, it is weird. You would think okay, why would the Rams grant this? Because they have no contingency plan outside of Stetson Bennett, who's on that roster. So, but for them to say, go out and shop around, there's something that we don't know about that's going on.
Yeah, go out, shop around, see what people will pay for you. Either, Joe, they're incredibly confident that Matthew Stafford is going to hear, hey, we would trade you only a 7th-round pick, and Matthew, maybe rework your deal to get around $45 million, just making up a figure. Don't even know what the contract is on an annual average value for Stafford at this moment. But maybe the Rams are so confident that the return is not going to be a ton out there. They're like, see, we told you. Now let's get down to brass tacks. That's an interesting position to allow your quarterback to gauge things out. Matthew Stafford is 37 years old. He has completed 16 NFL seasons at this point of his career. His first 12 in Detroit, the previous 4 years in LA. Joe, when Matthew Stafford has been healthy for the Rams in large part, they've been a playoff team bare minimum. They have won multiple divisional crowns. And of course, they have a Lombardi trophy altogether. I'm not entirely sure why the Rams are looking at this situation like it might make some sense to part ways with Matthew Stafford. I'm not so sure why Matthew Stafford is looking at this situation like it might make sense to leave LA, regardless of respect and personal relationships, unless that truly is the huge thorn in the side that feels underreported at this point. It's all confounding to me because on paper, Joe, yes, Cooper Kupp is going to be gone. A sign of the times in LA. It's tough, man. When you are north of 30 and you are not producing and you are injured, yeah, it's his longtime buddy and pal in Los Angeles. But you got to make a move to move on. You still have Puka Nacua. You still have a very talented Kyron Williams. You have a offensive line that was shored up this year. And you have a great young and improving defense where you have made the playoffs each of the past 2 years. And you were a couple of minutes away from being the favorites at home to host an NFC championship game. I don't understand what the disconnect is, Joe, which makes this all feel very jarring.
Yeah, again, something is going on behind the scenes, and we don't know what it is. But again, LA twofold. Either they're confident he can't be of the same significant value as he was last year, where they won the West and have had back-to-back years with 10 seasons, or they have a contingency plan where if one of these free agents come available, they'll sign him. That's got to be it.
Right? The Rams would have to go back to the drawing board. Matthew Stafford would have to start over at 37. None of it makes sense. I thought it was all speculation about a week ago. Then this report this weekend, I was like, maybe there might be something. He's Joe Lisi. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle returns tomorrow, noon Eastern Time.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. but we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.